Europe's most trusted economy is under pressure, and it isn't announcing it with panic or spectacle. Germany has long been treated as the standard, the place others point to when they want proof that discipline works. Precision engineering, cautious spending, factories that seem to run on instinct as much as electricity. Nothing dramatic has happened. No collapse, no chaos, no moment that forces everyone to stop and stare. Instead, the strain is gradual. For decades, Germany built its strength on consistency. Energy was affordable. Trade was predictable. Rules changed slowly, if at all. Efficiency wasn't just a goal, it was a philosophy. Systems were optimized, risks were minimized, and margins were shaved until very little was left unused. That model delivered extraordinary results. But it also left little room for surprise. Energy costs now behave like a variable, not a constant. Global trade has become political again. Speed and flexibility matter more than perfection. And an aging workforce is pushing against a clock that doesn't pause for tradition. Germany didn't break. It reached the limits of a system designed for a calmer world. The factories still operate. Goods still move. The infrastructure still functions, most of the time. Yet beneath the familiar indicators and reassuring statistics, something has shifted. Industries built for stability are facing volatility. Long-term planning is colliding with short-term shocks. And the qualities that once made Germany unbeatable, caution, discipline, predictability, are being tested in ways they never were before. This isn't a story about decline. It's a story about friction, about an economic model encountering a world that no longer moves at its pace, and about a country discovering that reliability alone is no longer enough. When the rules of the global economy keep changing faster than the systems designed to follow them. Germany didn't just build an economy, it built a reputation. For decades, it was treated as Europe's unshakable constant. While other nations argued over debt ceilings and budget crises, Germany balanced its books, shipped its exports, and quietly reassured everyone that stability was still possible in a chaotic world. Factories ran like precision instruments. German cars dominated highways from California to Shanghai. Made in Germany wasn't just a label, it was a promise. Reliability, discipline, permanence. And that's where the trouble began. Because permanence is a seductive illusion. When success lasts long enough, it stops being questioned. Policymakers began to assume the system would correct itself. Businesses assumed global demand would always be there. Voters assumed the model didn't need updating, just protecting. When growth slowed, it was brushed off as a cycle. When digital innovation lagged, it was framed as caution, not hesitation. Germany wasn't falling behind. People said it was simply being careful. But history has a cruel sense of humor. The world Germany mastered, stable trade, cheap energy, predictable geopolitics, was quietly disappearing. And Germany didn't notice, because nothing had broken yet. The economy wasn't collapsing. It was coasting. And coasting feels safe right until the road curves. By the time warning signs became impossible to ignore, Germany had already locked itself into assumptions that were no longer true. Assumptions about energy, about exports, about labor, about how fast the world was allowed to move. The illusion of permanence didn't shatter loudly. It faded, and the first crack appeared where Germany least expected it, in the thing that powered everything else. Germany's modern economic story runs on energy, not oil wells or coal mines, but gas pipelines. Cheap, steady, and seemingly reliable Russian gas became the invisible engine behind German industry. Chemical plants depended on it. Steelmakers needed it. Entire industrial regions were designed around energy prices that barely moved. It was elegant, efficient, and dangerously comfortable. At the same time, Germany was shutting down nuclear plants and promising a future powered by renewables. The plan was simple. Russian gas would act as a bridge, temporary support, just until the green transition was complete. Then geopolitics intervened. When gas supplies slowed and prices exploded, Germany didn't just face higher bills. It faced a structural shock. Energy costs jumped far beyond those of competitors in the United States or Asia. Suddenly, producing in Germany meant paying a premium, not for quality, but for survival. Factories reduced output. Some shut down temporarily. Others began quietly relocating parts of their operations abroad. Emergency subsidies helped. But subsidies don't change fundamentals. They just buy time. And time was exactly what Germany no longer had. Because once energy becomes expensive, everything follows. Exports lose competitiveness. Investment hesitates. Confidence slips. Germany had built a high-energy economy on a low-energy assumption. When that assumption collapsed, it didn't trigger chaos. It triggered doubt, and doubt spread fast. Germany's industrial success was forged in an age of machines, metal, and mastery. Precision engineering wasn't just a skill, it was culture. Improve the process. Perfect the product. Never rush. And for decades, that philosophy conquered the world. But the global economy changed its rules. Today's winners move faster than perfection allows. Software upgrades replace hardware overhauls. Electric vehicles disrupt entire supply chains. Artificial intelligence rewrites productivity curves overnight. Germany didn't ignore these shifts. It approached them carefully. While Silicon Valley experimented, Germany optimized. While competitors disrupted, Germany refined. The result wasn't failure, it was delay. German companies remain excellent at what they do, but excellence alone no longer guarantees dominance. Electric vehicles don't need thousands of mechanical components. Software matters more than steel. Speed beats tradition. Exports began to soften. Orders slowed. Industries that once pulled the economy forward began to feel heavy, anchored to a past that no longer guaranteed the future. The industrial giant wasn't falling. It was struggling to turn. And just as Germany tried to adjust, another dependency revealed itself, one that tied its fate to a very different economy. For years, China was Germany's perfect partner, a massive market hungry for machines, cars, and industrial expertise. German firms expanded rapidly, confident that growth in China would continue forever. Factories followed demand. Supply chains stretched across continents. Profits flowed. Then China changed. Economic growth slowed. Domestic competitors grew stronger. Political tensions rose. Suddenly, Germany found itself trapped, too dependent to pull back, but too exposed to feel safe. Exports weakened. Supply chains became uncertain. Companies faced a painful choice: diversify and lose scale, or stay and accept rising risk. Neither option was cheap. The global system Germany excelled in, open trade, predictable rules, economic integration, was fragmenting. Trade was no longer just about efficiency. It was about power, security, and leverage. And Germany, built for cooperation, was now navigating a world of confrontation. As this dependency became impossible to ignore, another weakness emerged closer to home, one rooted not in markets or geopolitics, but in how Germany governs itself. And that's where the story turns inward. Germany's bureaucracy was once its quiet superpower. Rules were clear, procedures were thorough, decisions were documented, reviewed, and protected from reckless change. In a slower world, this created trust. Businesses knew what to expect. Citizens trusted the system to be fair, but the world stopped being slow. In today's economy, speed isn't a luxury, it's survival. Innovation moves in months, not decades. Capital flows toward countries that can approve factories, data centers, and infrastructure before competitors even finish their paperwork. Germany struggles here. Permits for wind farms take years. Rail projects stall under layers of approval. Digital services lag behind nations with far fewer resources. Startups complain that it's easier to launch in Estonia than in Europe's largest economy. This isn't incompetence. It's rigidity. Every rule exists for a reason. Every safeguard was designed to prevent a past mistake. But stacked together, they form a maze that discourages experimentation. Entrepreneurs hesitate. Investors wait. By the time decisions are made, the opportunity has often passed. Ironically, Germany's obsession with precision now works against it. The system demands certainty in a world that rewards adaptation. As growth slows, frustration rises. Citizens see infrastructure decay, while debates drag on. Businesses quietly move faster elsewhere. The economy doesn't collapse, it leaks. And as administrative delays pile up, the workforce itself begins to change in ways bureaucracy cannot easily fix. Germany is getting older fast. Millions of skilled workers who built the post-war economic miracle are approaching retirement. Meanwhile, fewer young people are entering the labor force to replace them. Birth rates remain low. The demographic math is unforgiving. An aging population doesn't just shrink the workforce, it reshapes the entire economy. Productivity growth slows. Innovation becomes risk-averse. Public spending shifts toward pensions and healthcare rather than future investment. Germany tries to fill the gap through immigration, and to some extent, it works. But integration takes time. Language barriers persist. Skills don't always match industrial needs. The result is a labor market that is both short of workers and struggling to absorb new ones efficiently. This creates a quiet paradox. Jobs go unfilled while growth stalls. Companies delay expansion not because demand is weak, but because labor is scarce. Wages rise, but output doesn't always follow. An aging society also changes politics. Older voters prioritize stability over transformation. Reform becomes harder to sell. Long-term investment competes with immediate security. The economy isn't just losing fuel, it's losing momentum. And when demographic pressure meets economic uncertainty, political consequences follow. Germany's political system is built on consensus. Coalition governments encourage compromise, stability, and caution. For decades, this worked remarkably well. But consensus becomes fragile when the economy slows. As energy prices rose and growth weakened, public patience thinned. Political parties fragmented. New movements gained ground. Coalition negotiations grew longer and more complex. The result wasn't chaos. It was paralysis. Major reforms stalled. Long-term strategies were diluted by compromise. Businesses watched policy debates stretch on while global competitors moved ahead. Economic uncertainty feeds political uncertainty, and political uncertainty feeds economic hesitation. Investment slows. Consumer confidence drops. Even when policies are announced, implementation lags. Germany isn't lacking ideas. It's struggling to act decisively. The danger isn't extremism, it's drift. And drift is lethal for an economy built on planning and precision. As internal debates intensify, Germany also faces pressure from outside its borders, not just as a nation, but as Europe's anchor. Germany thrived in a world of open markets, stable alliances, and predictable trade rules. That world is fading. Globalization is being rewritten. Countries now prioritize resilience over efficiency. Supply chains are reshored. Governments subsidize domestic industries. Trade becomes strategic rather than purely economic. Germany finds itself caught between models. Its economy depends on exports, yet export markets are becoming less open. It believes in rules, but global power politics increasingly ignore them. Competitors like the United States use massive subsidies to attract industry, distorting the playing field Germany once trusted. The European Union offers protection, but also constraints. State aid rules, fiscal limits, and slow decision-making restrict how quickly Germany can respond. Leadership within Europe brings responsibility, but also hesitation. Germany is no longer just managing its own economy. It's carrying part of Europe's weight. The challenge isn't adaptation alone. It's adaptation within a system designed for a different era. And as global conditions tighten, Germany's remaining buffers, confidence, credibility, and patience, begin to wear thin, which is why, to the outside world, this all feels sudden. But the truth lies deeper. To many observers, Germany's economic struggle appears abrupt, almost shocking. One year it's Europe's engine. The next it's labeled the sick man of Europe in headlines that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. But the truth is less dramatic and more unsettling. Nothing broke overnight. What changed was tolerance for weakness. For years, Germany relied on buffers. Cheap energy absorbed inefficiency. Strong exports masked slow reform. Demographic decline was postponed by productivity gains and immigration. Global demand covered domestic hesitation. Every pressure existed, but none were fatal on their own. Then the buffers disappeared. When energy costs surged, inefficiencies became expensive. When global trade slowed, export dependence became visible. When interest rates rose, fiscal comfort narrowed. When geopolitics hardened, strategic neutrality stopped working. Germany didn't suddenly become weaker. The world simply stopped being forgiving. That's why this moment feels so sharp. Long-standing issues are now colliding, not sequentially, but simultaneously. Energy, industry, labor, bureaucracy, and geopolitics are no longer isolated challenges. They amplify one another. A delayed permit doesn't just slow a project anymore. It risks losing to another country. A labor shortage doesn't just raise wages. It caps growth. A cautious industrial strategy doesn't just preserve jobs. It risks missing entire technological shifts. And psychologically, this is new territory for Germany. The country is used to managing crises in others. Southern Europe's debt problems, Britain's Brexit shock, America's financial excesses. Germany was the anchor, the solver, not the subject. Now it's being forced to examine itself. Public debate has shifted. Confidence has softened. Businesses talk less about expansion and more about resilience. Citizens sense that something fundamental is changing, even if daily life still feels orderly. This is not collapse. It's exposure. Germany is discovering what happens when a system built for stability meets an era defined by volatility. The challenge isn't survival, it's relevance. And that realization leads directly to the most important question of all: what comes next? Germany stands at a crossroads it hasn't faced since reunification. One path is familiar: protect existing industries, subsidize energy, preserve social stability, manage decline carefully, quietly, and competently. This path avoids shock, avoids conflict, and avoids difficult choices, at least for now. The other path is harder. It demands faster decisions, looser rules, and uncomfortable reforms. It requires rethinking industrial policy, modernizing bureaucracy, embracing risk, and accepting that some traditions may no longer serve the future. This isn't about abandoning Germany's strengths. It's about redeploying them. Discipline doesn't have to mean rigidity. Planning doesn't have to mean paralysis. Precision doesn't have to come at the cost of speed. Germany still has enormous advantages: a skilled workforce, deep capital markets, trusted institutions, a global brand built over generations. Few countries start a transition from such a position of strength, but advantage decays if it isn't used. The energy transition must accelerate, not just environmentally, but economically. Industry must shift from optimizing the past to inventing the future. Immigration must move from emergency solution to long-term strategy. Governance must become faster without becoming reckless. And perhaps most difficult of all, Germany must let go of the idea that stability alone guarantees success. The world it mastered no longer exists. Trade is more political. Technology moves faster. Demographics are unforgiving. Competitors are more aggressive. Neutrality is harder to maintain. Hesitation costs more than it used to. Germany's struggle, then, is not a story of decline, unless it chooses it. It's a story of transition, of a country deciding whether to adapt boldly or age gracefully into irrelevance. And that decision won't just shape Germany, because when Europe's largest economy changes direction, the shockwaves travel far beyond its borders. The question is no longer whether Germany will change. The question is how fast and how much it's willing to risk to remain what it once was by becoming something new.